we're going to work on adding and subtracting functions. We're going to start with the functions h of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 2x, g of x equals a negative 3x plus 2, and f of x equals negative 4x minus 5. The first thing we're going to do is find f of x plus g of x. So if we have f of x plus g of x, the f of x function is a negative 4x minus 5, so I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Negative 4x minus 5, and I'm going to add it to my g of x function, which is a negative 3x plus 2. When I add functions together, the add doesn't change any of the signs inside of the parentheses on these two numbers, so I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite it without the add there and get rid of the parentheses. So we'll have negative 4x minus 5 minus 3x plus 2. What I want to do now is I want to combine like terms. I want to start with the letters with the highest exponents, but since these are only x to the first powers, they're the only ones I have to worry about. So I'm going to take my negative 4x and write it down, and I'm going to cross it off because I used it, and that way I won't forget any of my terms. The next one with an x is my negative 3x. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down, and I'm going to cross it off because I've used it. Then I'm going to take my numbers without letters and write them down next with their signs. So negative 5 plus 2. Then all I have to do is go back and combine my like terms. If I have negative 4x's and I subtract 3x's, I get negative 7x. If I have negative 5 plus 2, I get negative 3. And there's my answer. Now if I'm going to subtract functions, I'm still going to put them in order the way they're written down. I'm going to write h of x first. And h of x was x squared plus 4 plus 2x. So I'm going to write x squared plus 4 plus 2x. And then I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to use parentheses. And here's where I really think parentheses matter, because I have to make sure that I distribute that negative to each individual thing inside the parentheses, which is my f of x term. And f of x was negative 4x minus 5. So I want to go ahead and distribute that to everything inside the parentheses, but I'm going to write this stuff down first so I don't forget to use it. I have x squared plus 4 plus 2x, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so I'm going to get plus 4x, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so I'm going to get plus 5. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before and combine like terms. I want to start with the x with the largest exponents, and so I have that as x squared, so I'm going to write that down first. Then I'm going to cross it off because I used it. Then I'm going to go to my x's that are just one less, so x to the first power. I have 2x and I have 4x, so I'm going to write those down with their signs. Plus 2x, cross it off, plus 4x, and cross it off. Then I have my numbers without letters, and I'm going to write both of those down. So plus 4, plus 5. Now I'm going to combine my like terms. Well, I don't have anything combined with the x squared, so I get x squared. If I have 2x's and I have 4x's, I have 6x's. And then if I have 4 plus 5, I have plus 9. And this one is h of x minus f of x. Now one more thing that we need to do is we need to evaluate them at given numbers. So I'm going to use this same thing right here where we added the functions, but I'm going to say f of 3 plus g of 3. Now the easiest way I find to do this is take the 3 and plug it straight into my function and then do the operation. So I'm going to go f of 3 equals, and I'm going to plug that 3 in for each x into that function. So I'm going to get negative 4 times 3 minus 5. Well, negative 4 times 3 is negative 12 minus 5 equals negative 17. That's f of x evaluated at 3. Then I'm going to take g of x and evaluate it at 3. So I'm going to put 3 in for each x into our function. So I'm going to go negative 3 times 3 plus 2. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. If I add 2, I'm going to get negative 7. Now what I wanted to do with those two functions is I want to add them. So I'm going to take negative 17 and I'm going to add negative 7. Well, if I have two negatives, it just makes it more. So I am going to get negative 24. And that is my answer when I evaluate that at 3. So let's use this same function and do the same thing with subtracting functions. We're going to find h of negative 2, and we're going to subtract f of negative 2. This is the number we're going to plug in for each of our x's in our original functions. So h of x, I'm going to put negative 2 in for each one of those x's, and I'm still going to use those parentheses. So I'm going to go negative 2 in parentheses and square it. Then I add 4, and then I add 2, and then put that negative 2 in parentheses. Make sure to use the parentheses, because if you don't square this with parentheses, you'll get the wrong number. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. I'm going to add 4 because there wasn't anything to substitute in there. And 2 times negative 2 is a negative 4. So 4 plus 4 is 8, minus 4 is 4. And that one was for h of x. Now I need to do f of x, so I'm going to plug that negative 2 into each one of those x's. So I have negative 4 times negative 2 minus 5. And let's just label these so that we remember. This was h of negative 2, and this one right here is f of negative 2. Okay, so we're going to go negative 4 times negative 2 is a negative 8, and we're going to subtract 5. Well, negative 8 subtract 5 is negative 13. Now, this was just the functions evaluated at negative 2, but we still have to go back and we have to subtract the functions. So we're going to go 4 subtract that negative 13. Well, a negative and a negative makes a positive, so we're going to get 4 plus 13 equals 17. And that is h of negative 2 minus f of negative 2. And that's what we need to know when we're adding and subtracting functions.